Chapter 24. After our Art Institute diversion, I decided to go back to normal lesson plans to avoid the element of surprise, i.e., not knowing the answers to my own questions. Control and I, after all, were like this. But even normal lessons turned out to be a problem. Case in point, everything math-like besides plain math, plus, question mark, times, percentage, was a huge recipe for trouble. Nudge was reduced to tears by the natural-unnatural number conundrum, and tensions were high again. Look, I know this has been really hard, I said, but we don't just quit because something is hard. Nudge frowned. Yes, we do. We do it all the time. Fang brushed his hand across his mouth and looked down at the table, obviously trying to hide a smile. Well, okay, maybe sometimes we do, I admitted. But I'm not backing down from this. We're going to be educated if it kills us. I looked at them seriously. Because if we're not educated, I'm dang sure that will kill us. Max? Angel turned her innocent blue eyes on me. Here's something to learn, but it's funner to read. She pulled out a book and handed it to me. Alarms went off in my head when I saw the cover. The Way to Survive by Hans Gunther Hagen. Where did you get this? I took the book from her and started flipping through it. Dr. Hans gave it to me in Africa. It's really interesting, said Angel. Okay, I said, narrowing my eyes at her. When was she hanging out with Dr. G.H. in Africa? Class dismissed. For the rest of the afternoon, I curled up in our deck hammock and blocked out the sound of the TV coming from inside while I read Dr. Scary's book. Fang came and sat in the other end of the hammock, so our feet were touching. I thought about the last time we'd managed to be really alone. Not counting the night I thought he was an eraser, because that had sucked, and my cheeks flushed. I wished we were 20 years old. I wished we were safe and didn't ever have to worry about people like Dr. G. I wished we could do whatever we wanted. What you doing? This is what Angel is reading. I'm wondering if the not-so-good doctor got to her in Africa. Compelling read? Just kind of horrible, I said quietly. At first it seems like he's talking about how to save the earth and how mankind has messed everything up and how we should fix it. But if you keep going, he says the only way for humankind to survive is if it radically changes, becomes more than human. He calls it skipping an evolutionary grade. Basically, he wants everyone to evolve, and he's trying to come up with a technology to jumpstart it. If he had his way, no one would be 100% human anymore. Everyone would be hybrids or have their genes tinkered with to make them superhuman. We like being more than human, Fang pointed out. But we're only more than human because we're rare, I said. What are we if everyone is like us or evolved in different ways? What if we become the ones who aren't special enough? Fang murmured. So where does the doctor go with his plan? I frowned. He asks for help. From scientists, from volunteers, from people who want to be on the cutting edge of a new world. But meanwhile, he's out there injecting people with God knows what, or maybe worse. And every one of his experiments can't be a success. Some of them have to be mistakes, failures. What happens to those people? He's not going to want to see anyone to see his failures, Fang said. In fact, he's going to make sure no one does. He'll have to get rid of them. I nodded, feeling sick inside. Whoops. Are you thinking we need to stop him? Fang asked. I'm thinking we need to start with some research. Chapter 25. Dr. Scary had about 300,000 Google hits. We started waiting. The high point was stumbling on a photo of him from grad school, which actually made me laugh out loud. Back in the old days, the doc had a lot of hair, and it was perfectly feathered. Wow, you think you know someone. But it all went downhill from there. On around page 30 of our search results, we clicked on a link that looked like gobbledygook. But when the screen cleared and refreshed, it almost made my heart stop. At the top of the page appeared a logo for the Institute of Higher Living. The rest of the screen was blank except for 3 boxes for a username and 2 passwords. I hadn't heard anything about the Institute in a long time. We'd busted into one of their facilities and released some mutants once. That's where we had picked up Total. Fang and I exchanged glances. We knew we had to find a way to break in. Nudge? I called and she came over. Nudge had a preternatural gift for computer hacking, and she was the only one of us who truly knew her way this high-octane government computer we'd nabbed a while back. I couldn't even process the flurry of mouse clicks, screen flashes, dialogue boxes going open and shut, and letter number series that Nudge keyed into the machine as she tried to hack in. It took her about 10 minutes to get access, a long time by her measure, and it took Fang and me 20 more minutes of exploring to find a list of lab reports that sounded like maybe, just maybe, they had the fingerprints of Dr. Hackjob Whackjob. Morbid effects of autoantibodies on rodents, autoimmune toxicity and systemic viral experimentation on chimpanzees, abnormal cell differentiation from induced pluripotent stem cell experimentation, cancerous effects of viral reprogramming of iPSCs in human adults, defective apoptotic processes and cell proliferation in iPSC experimentation on human children. Most of those words I didn't know, aside from the red flags of cancerous and abnormal. But human children was all I needed to feel like throwing up. I almost didn't want to go further. But I drew a breath and forced myself to start reading the first document. Fang and I stared at the screen. Is it just me? Or does this feel like it's written in Latin? Fang said 5 minutes later. We were both so freaked by the scientific mumbo-jumbo that we hadn't even clicked to the next page view. Latin would be easier to understand than this, I grumbled. But hold on. See those references in parentheses to Figure 1 and Figure 2 and Figure 3? It means there are pictures somewhere associated with this paper. Well, you know what they say, Fang began. A picture is worth 1,000 words, I finished. Let me just skim through the rest of the stuff real quick and see if anything catches my eye. I have to give myself credit for that one. Most grown-ups wouldn't have even bothered to try to wade through that crap, but I managed to pick up on 2 key points. First, autoantibodies set your immune system against you and attack the body's own organs like they're the bad guys. Second, abnormal cell growth, too much cell growth, badly programmed cell growth equals party invitation to cancer. Great. I started clicking through the pages of the PDF faster now to get to the pictures. And then, when I did, I wondered why I had been so eager to see them. Our grisly tour of Dr. Hans Gunther Hagen's Gallery of Mistakes took at least 2 hours. We saw people with purple eyelids and grotesquely bulging eyes the size of baseballs. People with glands in their necks so swollen it looked as if there were an alien creature growing inside them. Others had muscles so inflamed their bodies ballooned and twisted into shapes I didn't think possible. The skin disorders were maybe the worst for me to look at. Rashing and cracking and bleeding and virtual disintegration so wildly extreme that I had to stand up and walk away from the computer at one point. This was only what was happening on the surface of these victims. I'd read enough to understand the bottom line: toxic disaster. chronic pain, even agony, not to mention the psychological effects of dealing with it. There's more. The regeneration stuff, Fang said, and I nodded. It was a horror show, but I had to go deeper, and deeper still. Page after page, image after image, document after document. I can't even write down the details of what I saw on the screen that day. It would bring back too many nightmarish visions of festering wounds, partial and deformed limbs, and horrific tumours of all shapes and sizes. I just knew it, I said in a low voice. I knew he would stop at nothing to accelerate his research on humans. What we would call mistakes, Dr. G called progress. Chapter 26. It was hours later when Iggy jolted us out of Dr. Hans's funhouse. What have you been doing all this time? Online poker? You sure are into it. Playing a video game, Fang answered, hiding the document on the desktop. Even though the other kids had seen a lot of freaky stuff in their lives, it was our instinct to protect them from anything that might overload their quota of nightmares. You're lying through your fangs, Iggy accused. Fang tried to play innocent, but innocent fan is an oxymoron, so it didn't work. That reminds me, Angel called to us from the couch. I have a video for you, Max. She skipped to her bedroom and brought out a backpack that she turned upside down. Out dropped a clogged travel-size hairbrush, an iPod shuffle, and a CD in a linty transparent sleeve. I found it in my bag a few days after we got back from Africa. It has your name on it, but I don't know how it got there, I swear. I didn't have a good feeling about this, but curiosity got the better of me and I popped the CD into the computer right away. I'd drill Angel later about why she forgot to give it to me until now. When I clicked play, my not good feeling got much, much less good. My favourite finger-chopping foe smiled at me from the screen. "Hello, Max," Dr. Gunther Hagen began. I braced myself as Fang stood behind me with his comforting hands on my shoulders. "You ran out a bit quickly today, and I was so excited to be demonstrating my work that I never had the opportunity to give you some of the more important reasons why I know you would find it very rewarding to work with me. As I'm certain was apparent from what you saw and learned of my limb regeneration project, I'm in the world's leading expert on stem cell research, bar none. Growing an organ in addition, implanting it is rather an elementary process for me and my team compared to limb regeneration. In fact, I've been successfully implanting organs grown from my subject's own tissue for a number of years. Were you to join forces with me, doors would open up for you and your flock." He paused dramatically. "For example, wouldn't one of your boys love—" He reached to his side and slid a cloudy jar into view of the camera. "A brand new pair of these." He picked up the container so the camera could focus on it. Floating inside was a human eyeball. Chapter 27. The next morning I set the kids to working on independent studies, and I did more computer research about the genetic recombination theory and stem cell science. I knew they had incredible potential to help humankind, but what became clear to me was that the doctor was experimenting way too fast on humans. All my research had done was upset me. So now I was emerging from a long shower that was supposed to be therapeutic. I started dragging a comb through my brown hair, getting it caught in the snails. Really and truly stuck. I got lost in the ritual of trying to untangle the tangles, contemplating Dr. Hans and Iggy and the possibility of new healthy eyes for one of the people I loved most in the world, as the moisture on the mirror slowly began to dissipate. That's when I spotted an eraser in the mirror looking at me through the fog. Reactions were faster than I thought, and I whirled, one fist raised to strike. an empty wall. A fast look showed that unless the eraser was paper thin and stuck to my back, there was no one in here but me. I sat on the edge of the tub, heart pounding. This had happened to me once before, ages ago. I'd looked in the mirror and seen an eraser version of Max looking back at me. But erasers didn't exist anymore. They'd all been retired. I peeped up over the edge of the mirror. The steam had cleared and I saw my human face, my brown eyes. What was happening to me? Chapter 28. Swearing under my breath, I searched the bathroom, opening cupboards, feeling under the sink. I examined every inch of every wall and ran my fingers around the window frame. There was a hidden camera there. I didn't find it. A tap on the door made me jump like a deer. Yeah, it's me. I unlocked the door and let Fang in. Grinning, he shut the door behind him. Then he saw my face. What's wrong? He glanced around. You have that ghost look again. I let out a breath. Nothing. Then why is a comb stuck in your hair? Crap. I slowly pulled it out, trying to get it through the worst of the tangles. From down the hall, I heard raised voices and a crash, and I tensed. The kids are taking a little break, Fang said. But everything's okay out there? I tried to sound casual. He shrugged. I think they're getting cabin fever. He stepped forward and put his hands around my waist. But enough about them, he said, and his voice sent chills, good ones, down my spine. I wanted to forget about everything and escape into Fang's kiss. Don't think, just feel. Where's Max? I heard Gazzy say out in the hall, and Iggy responded. Wherever Fang is, of course. They laughed. I pulled away from Fang. Even this was being ruined. They're okay, said Fang, bending his head again. A second later, I nearly jumped out of my skin, though. Oh, Fang, you're so handsome, I heard. It sounded like me, standing right next to me. That was Gazzy, doing one of his absolutely perfect impersonations. He also had a gift for throwing his voice. Max, let me take you away from all this, my darling. If I hadn't been holding Fang, and also hadn't known that he would never say something that corny, I would have sworn it was him. Cackling laughter. Fang and I leaned our foreheads against each other. Whoa, watch it! There was a loud crash and I practically pushed Fang into the wall. Yanking the door open, I strode down the hall. What's going on out here? I demanded, hands on hips. Nothing, Gazzy said, smirking. What's going on in there? He wiggled his eyebrows suggestively and my face burned. Then I saw it. A pile of broken dishes and leftover food all over the floor. Who did this? It was me, Gazzy said in Nudge's voice. Hey, she said. They were wrestling. You're supposed to be studying, I snapped. Oh, well, you get to make kissy face with Fang in the bathroom? Iggy sneered. I don't think so. I was so mortified I was speechless for a second. Then I stamped my foot and said, Get back to your books, which, of course, was a huge mistake. Chapter 29. They just stared at me for a moment, then Iggy's face contorted into anger. He yanked off his iPod earphones and threw the whole thing across the room. I can't take it anymore. Hey, I said sharply. Those are expensive. I can't help it, he shouted. I've been listening to how the Roman Empire fell, and all I can say is it didn't fall nearly fast enough. You're like totally sucking the fun out of the first kind of a vacation we've had in ages and ages, Gazzy whined, his arms crossed. Even Nudge, my peacemaker, chimed in. I listened to an hour of French history this morning, And I thought my head was going to explode, she said. It's just army this, invader that, conquering whatever. We have to learn, and I love learning things, but there has to be a better way. Like at a school. I was shocked. Nudge had always been my most loyal supporter. Well, I wasn't going to stand for this. I was the flock leader. I was going to restructure our lesson plans. I was going to start issuing demerits or other teachery things. I was going to stop being such a hard nose. I had an idea, and I like to think it actually came from my own brain, not from the voice or from Angel. And it's so sad that I even need to clarify that. You know, I said slowly, I'm going to be 15 tomorrow. Blank stares. I guess I hadn't made the smoothest segue in the world. What? Iggy asked. I'm going to turn 15 tomorrow, I said, warming to the idea. It's high time. I can't remember when I turned 14. We've got to start writing this stuff down. Anyway, tomorrow I'm going to be 15, so we need a party. If you get to be 15, then I get to be 15, Iggy said. Iggy sounded indignant. I looked at Fang. Want to be 15? His smile melted me. Yeah! I want to be 12, Nudge cried. I'm 9, said Gazzy, jumping up and down. I'm already 7, but I didn't have a party, said Angel. Then it's decided, I said in my leaderly way. We're all turning a year older tomorrow, and we're going to have a big party. My flock cheered and started dancing around the room. I sighed happily. Sometimes being a good leader is knowing when to back off.